Ricky Bottalico, Comcast Sportsnet pre- and post-game. I thought he had some interesting things to say over the weekend regarding Velasquez. I agreed with him there. I also think that last night there were some things we want to get into. But most of all, Ricky, I'm assuming Friday's rain delay you enjoyed greatly.
So I had a great time because Pete was there. If he wasn't there, it would have been a mess.
It was rain delay theater,
right? I will tell you this. Oh yeah, watching Pixels. That's what we were doing, watching the movie Pixels. That was our rain delay theater.
And coming up with great end game questions. That was my role.
You guys need to film what happens during the rain delays and air that the next rain delay.
I mean, it was poor Marshall's birthday, so I mean, happy birthday. Yeah. Here's another rain delay.
Hey, you're lucky it was a 2:20 start and not a 7:05er.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, one of those happy birthday, you're not going out
now. So, Ricky, I want you to start with the Velasquez over the weekend, and I thought you said something really interesting, and here's a young guy who people are excited about, but when you hear what he had to say, it kind of – that is where the young guy comes out in a situation where I thought he said something, and you kind of commented on it, that really kind of shows that these young guys, sometimes they're not pitchers in their minds yet. They're still throwers, and that he's got a long way to come in terms of where he can be if he has a better mental aspect of the game.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I mean, I go back to that 16 strikeout performance. All right, that's all fine and dandy. You had 16 strikeouts. You got to get over it. I mean, it was a long time ago at this point. And the one thing that we haven't seen from Velasquez is a guy that can go deep into games. And I do comparisons. I hear what younger guys say. And I heard Aaron Nola, I think it was last week, he was on with Marshall Harris. And Marshall asked him, what kind of stats do you look at after the game to see what kind of game that you pitched? He says, well, I don't look much in the stats, but I do look and see how far I got deep into the game. That, to me, is a seasoned-type pitcher. That's a guy that wants to be in the ballgame. He wants to stay in there as long as he can. I look at Velasquez, and, I mean, the number of pitches he throws early on in ballgames, that makes you, they talk about being the ace, the number one, the number two, the number three. The way he pitches, he can't be that guy because he won't stay in deep in the games. You got to cut down the pitch counts. And I think as far as being a thrower, you're talking about the 2-0 pitch. There was a 2-0 pitch to, I believe it was Montero. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. I think it was Montero. And he said, what else am I supposed to do? I just got to rear back and basically throw a fastball down the middle and see what happens. No, that's not pitching. That is not how you pitch. I mean, that may be a late reliever's thought process because they usually have blazing fastballs. But let's face it, this guy's not throwing 97 miles an hour in the game lately. Okay, so you don't just try to blow pitches by people. And even late relievers are trying to hit a spot on a 2-0 pitch. You're not trying to rear back and throw it by somebody because guess what? It ends up in the basket, just like in that scenario.
Yeah, he gave up 7 runs in 4 2/3 on Sunday, 9 hits. You mentioned, Ricky, the pitch count. It seems to be up for him a lot. Even when he pitches well, he seems to only be getting through about 5 innings. So that's something that he really needs to learn. I want to get your thoughts then on the next thing from the weekend, since it was an elongated weekend, and that was Pete coming out basically and saying, not Pete Thompson, that they planned for Tommy Joseph to get more playing time. And that's something that we've been talking about for a while, but do you think that Pete will stick to this, that Joseph will get a majority of the games even if there's right-handers playing?
I do believe that. I think you're not take the name Ryan Howard out of the equation. Just take it out of the equation. And you look at the numbers. Are you going to play that guy that's hitting 157? I mean, that's the question you have to ask yourself. Not just because this guy's Ryan Howard, is he going to play all the time or whatnot. I think Tommy Joseph has done a somewhat adequate job at this point. I mean, it's early in his career. But, I mean, Pete McCannon doesn't want the same thing to happen to him that had happened to Darren Ruff earlier in the season. Let's face it. Ruff was here. They didn't give him enough at-bats. There's no doubt about that. And, obviously, you lose your timing. You lose your playability, more or less, at that point, and that's why Darren Ruff is down in the Lehigh Valley. They don't want to do the same thing as Tommy Joseph. I think you give the guy as many at-bats as you can. The other thing that's got to be noticed is that you're trying to grow from here. You're not trying to hit a brick wall and stop. And with Ryan Howard, I think you're at that brick wall and stopping right now.
Now, Ricky, what did you think?
At least with Tommy, you put him in there and you see if he can be a first baseman in the future.
Now, what did you think of Tommy Joseph's pinch hitting appearance last night for Chooch in the ninth inning?
I sit back and wonder why Andres Blanco wasn't in that situation. I mean, nothing against Tommy Joseph, but it is a right-handed pitcher. It is Jonathan Papelbon, who is no slouch in his career, so not an easy at-bat for him. I mean, to go down on 3 strikes is not a great at-bat, obviously, for anybody at the big league level. But I don't think I expected too much more in that situation.
Ricky, that was Frank Close asking that question, and I'll ask you then, Hellickson, his pitch count was low. Did you think that he should have been pulled at that point in the game? Are you okay with McCann just automatically going to Neris at that point?
You know what? You hit the nail on the head when you said automatically, because sooner or later that door is going to close. You have those 2 relievers in the back end with Neris and Gomez. They're going well right now, or were going well as of last night. And I get the point, but why not just let Hellickson go out for the 8th, start the 8th? If something goes wrong, then go to Neris. It was senseless in this situation because, I mean, you're talking about bringing in Emmanuel Burris pinch hit. I mean, that's basically how. I mean, Hellickson might have a better batting average than he does, and then you're going to take out Hellickson, who, he gave up a hard hit ball in the 7th, but you know what? Life goes on. A lot of pitchers give up hard hit balls and go back out that next inning and finish it up. And I'll bet you if you ask Hellickson and if he was truthful, he'd say, I wanted to go back out there. So I believe he should have gone back out for the 8th.
I want to ask you, you closed, Ricky, at a high level, too. And I get angered so many times when you see a guy, Neris pitched the day before in a 7-1 game. And here's a guy who seems like he's pitching every single day, and you throw him out there in a 7-1 game, and I'm thinking, really? Give him a couple days. That bothers me, and then you're going right back to him again last night. I don't know that pitching the day before had anything to do with why he wasn't sharp last night, but you as a closer, when they called you into a game that was not a safe situation, what is that like?
That's garbage innings to me. That was not necessarily a bad thing all the time. I mean, if the team was going real bad and you had 4 or 5 days off, it's always nice to get an inning. But I mean, you're talking about you brought him in for 1 out. What is the point? Have him throw a bullpen out in the bullpen and then sit down. There is no point for him going into that game for 1 out, none whatsoever.
Now, Ricky,
and I don't think it had anything to do with last night, but I mean, just senseless. The guy's leading the league in appearances. Are you trying to win that title for him? That's what it seems like.
Ricky, the Phillies have 2 rehabbing players in Mario Hollins and Cody Asche who will be finish their rehab assignment soon. Would you bring them right up and throw them right into the mix, or would you send them back down to AAA and get some more seasoning? Or, given a couple of the names on the Phillies roster, would you throw them right into the mix?
I think Mario Hollins stays down. I think Cody Asche comes right up. They don't have any pop in left or right field. So what do? You got to find it somewhere, and I think Cody Asche ends up being a starter in one of the corner outfield positions. I think Peter Borges becomes like a defensive type replacement late in the game. That's the only way I look at it. Mario Hollins, I mean, he's admittedly said that this has been a lot tougher than he would have thought coming back. So, it's just interesting. I mean, it's great to get a guy like Asche back, but you still, unless he didn't hit great last year, what makes us think that all of a sudden he's turned everything around and is going to be the savior for this outfield? I don't think that's an answer either.
You talked about pop, Ricky. Ryan Howard, one of the guys that can put the ball over the fence, but he's been in the discussions a lot. He was dominated the pregame talk with Pete Buchanan yesterday. All the reporters wanted to know, what are you going to do with Ryan Howard? Do you have an answer on this? Are you tired of talking about Ryan Howard, or do you have any solution to what the Phillies can do with him?
Do you find somebody out there that's not tired of talking about Ryan Howard, and I'll give you a medal, because I think everybody is, and I'm sure Pete is. I'm sure. And the one guy who's unfairly questioned about this is Tommy Joseph. It's none of his business. If his name's on the card, you go in and play. He's a young guy. He doesn't deserve all this mess that's going on. But as for Ryan, I mean, he's hitting 157. Okay, that's first and foremost. But I mean, the real question is who's going to take his place. I mean, the Phillies have to pay him this year, regardless of the situation. But who's going to take his place? There is nobody. I mean, regardless of who he is and what he's batting, he still can hit the ball out of the ballpark. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, and Pete Mackinnon over the weekend, I guess, kind of, he voiced a little bit of frustration. Ricky said, you look at the Cubs, you look at the Tigers, they've got the home run, they've got power, they had threats to do damage. We haven't been able to do that. Last night he said, look, we got a solo homer and a suicide squeeze. Obviously, that frustration is starting to come through, but that being said, this team's a heck of a lot in a better place than most people thought. I don't know what Pete's expectations were, but are there things he can do with the current roster to help that, to change some things? Can he move some guys in the lineup? Can he use some guys from the minors? What is there a magic potion for this particular roster, or are we beginning to see what we thought we would see?
I think we're more or less seeing what we thought we would see. I mean, what are you going to do, start switching guys all over the order? I mean, I've been asked, hey, why not put Goodell in the cleanup spot? Why? I mean, the guy is young. He's just gotten to the big leagues, and you're going to put him in a pressure spot like that? No, that's not going to happen. The only guys that I could possibly see in a cleanup type spot, and I'm bringing this up for a reason, is maybe Cameron Rupp, maybe Tommy Joseph, and then maybe Maikel Franco. So those three guys. That being said, the biggest problem in the Phillies lineup has been the number 3 and 4 spots. I mean, the Phillies are in desperate need of a cleanup hitter. They're in desperate need to have Maikel Franco turn it up a notch. This is something that has kind of gone by the wayside, if you will. Everybody knows he's struggling a little bit, but it's just kind of like, oh, he'll be okay. He's a young guy. He's going to get it back together. Nobody's really picked on that, if you haven't noticed. And I'm not really sure why.
Ricky Bottalico with us.
I really believe that part of the lineup is the reason why they're not scoring runs.
Sorry about that, pal. Ricky Bottalico with us on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN FM. So Aaron Nola versus Ross tonight. What do you expect out of Nola?
You know what? His last outing wasn't great, wasn't bad. I expect kind of a bounce back from him. He stays, they know this team. They know the Nationals. I like what I've seen from Nola this season. I guess if you're looking for a consistency type guy, he's pretty much been it for the Phillies. I mean, he's that one guy that you actually get excited to see in the starting rotation right now, and he's been the one guy that really hasn't disappointed too much. So I expect nothing different from him tonight. Come out, if he has command of his fastball, he's unhittable. And I know everybody says curveball, 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 but I really believe if you have command of that fastball, then that curveball gets that much better. So that's the first thing I look for him in tonight's game. And the one guy to really be a little worried about, I would say, is, believe it or not, Daniel Murphy, because that guy is flat out raking right now.
Now, one name that has disappointed some Phillies fans in the starting rotation is Adam Morgan. How patient do you think the Phillies should be with Morgan this season?
Well, I think there's a reason why they're patient with him right now. First and foremost, I don't necessarily think they're being that patient with him, because if in the last game he pitched, the one thing that came out from Pete Mackinnon was that he's inconsistent. And at this, quote unquote, at this level, you can't be inconsistent. You have to be a straightforward type guy and be able to make up for your mistakes each and every time and make adjustments. That's first and foremost. Then Bob McClure had said something about, well, he's flying open. Well, I think that should have been taken care of right away. You don't let a guy keep going out there if his front shoulder's flying open from the get-go, is basically what I got out of it. And you put those two things together, normally would be a send-down. That would be a shot back to Lehigh Valley to work on things. But that all being said, I don't think the Phillies want to rush all these guys they got down below. I think they want them to get their feet wet slowly and surely. And I know a lot of people say Zach Eflin, he struggled in his last start at AAA. But I think they want to kind of slowly bring these guys in. I don't think they just want to start throwing them into the fire because the Major League team is struggling a little bit. I think that's going to take some time, and let's face it, I don't think we want to see David Buchanan big league level anytime soon. And I think he would kind of be the next guy that we would see.
Be careful what you wish for.
That'd be like a rain delay every night.
Yeah.
You see?
Second rain delay.
With most of the moves of the Phillies right now, I think what we're seeing is kind of a waiting game.
Yeah.
And it's more or less because their expectations are low within the organization. So it's kind of like, well, let these guys adapt. Let's see if they can turn it around. Let's see if they make their adjustment. I mean, at some point during the season, yes, they'll start flipping players around. But I think that the Phillies, in general think that'll be death to the big league club.
Ricky Bottalico is with us. Ricky, Matt Klintek said this. I want you to hear what he had to say. This was on Sirius XM. Take a listen.
We all feel comfortable internally that we have players within our system in the minor leagues that can come up and help us, but we have to be patient and make sure we're promoting those guys at the right time. And some of those promotions could take place this year. Some of them might be a year or two down the road, but we are eager and excited to see some of the players continue to develop in our own organization.
I thought that was intriguing because he kind of admits, like, hey, we think we have kind of Ron Hextall-ish, like, hey, we got some guys that we think that we can bring in. We're just kind of waiting. So are there guys that you would be intrigued to see up here from that minor league system? Because I think everyone just goes to Nick Williams and J.P. Crawford and maybe some of the pitchers, but are there guys that you think that Klintek is referring to when he says we think we have guys in our own organization?
Well, I think that's exactly who he's pointing at. Because I think the pressure has been on them since Morgan's been struggling and other guys are struggling to bring up the names. People want to see the names, and it's too soon. That's the point I think he's trying to make. He's sitting back and trying to tell us, hey, we're going to be patient. You need to calm down a little bit with us. And I don't think it's a bad move. And don't forget, the one thing I think, Pete, you might have heard me say this the other day, is that the Super Twos, I believe today is the day anyways, that goes away where the players become Super Twos or not. Mm-hmm. But I just believe that, you don't want to get all these guys' clocks ticking right away, because then you're going to start owing them money before they're even in their prime.
Ricky Bottalico, Comcast Sportsnet pre- and post-game.
I heard you talk about Pixels and about Adam Sandler. That's what I heard.
Well, that was Marshall Harris's movie.
That was his pick, yeah. I didn't want to hurt his feelings, Rick, but I was going to say, well, there's 2 hours of our life we won't get back. But, I didn't want to be mean to him on his birthday.
You know what's funny? He just came over here and said, tell Pete I said hi. Now I'm going to have to tell him to take that back.
Oh, no, he's the best.
Well, tonight, the second game of the three-game set with the Nationals. It's Aaron Nola tonight, Joe Ross for the Nationals. Ricky Bowe will have pre- and post-game for Comcast Sportsnet. Thanks, Ricky. We appreciate the time.
All right, guys, enjoy your afternoon.